We have Zach Stock from Homestead Studio next. That's going to talk to us about landing pages. The $100 million landing page, breaking down the top landing pages for my launch brands, all the way to landing pages for a 9-figure brand. So yeah, maybe that's going to warrant a small introduction for what is Homestead as well. But Zach, great to have you. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's fire. The chat is completely blowing up, so we're expecting some good engagement and questions for you at the end. So we'll save a few minutes for that. But we're really looking forward to learning more about Homestead and how you guys working landing pages.
Cool. All right, I can share my screen and then we'll get into it. Cool. So this is what we're going to cover over the course of my talk today. We're going to start with a quick background on myself. Then we're going to go into when to start testing landing pages, the start to finish process, breaking down a 9-figure client of ours landing page, and then me being an open book on two of my brands landing pages. And then at the end, kind of wrapping up with some frequently asked questions. So stoked to get started. A little bit about me. I am the founder of Homestead. We're a growth marketing agency, primarily focused on paid social and customer acquisition, as well as retention marketing. As of right now, we're currently a team of 52 full-time employees. And then on top of that, Homestead will manage just over $100 million on Meta this year across our 60 clients. Over the last 2 years, I have started to build and acquire a portfolio of direct-to-consumer brands. The portfolio itself will pace at around 15 million in revenue this year, and we are fully bootstrapped. I've also personally launched 100 landing pages for my own brands over the last 12 months, which is why I'm really excited today to talk to you about landing pages. Okay, big disclaimer. Nothing I teach today will be a magic trick for fixing an awful product, a poor offer, weak ad creatives, or a confusing website. I just want to be very clear on this. If you're in this situation, these are the things you need to be focusing on first, and then we can get into the landing page side of things. So a lot of questions come around the idea of when is it a great time to start landing pages? So we've mostly broken this down to 3 scenarios. So scenario A is you've nailed your offer, you have a system in place for cranking out new creative tests, but you're only driving traffic to your website. Now, this is the ideal starting point for testing landing pages, and lucky you've already nailed your offer. You've already nailed creative testing, and you have a process for cranking out more new creative tests. You have a process for how you're doing creative testing in your ad account. This is the ideal scenario that you want to be in before you start to jump into one more piece of the puzzle, which is landing pages. Scenario B would be you want to test a new product, new angle, positioning, pricing, offer. This is where most brands that we work with and our clients are kind of at. They may have product market fit, they may have some funnels working, but they really want to try to launch something new. Scenario C would be you can't afford a full website revamp and you want a cheaper, faster option to test. This is usually brands that are somewhat struggling. They're not profitable. Most of the time, these are launch brands. Now, like I said in the beginning, ideally you're starting in scenario A where you've already cracked some of these things before you add in landing pages. But we'll break down the other scenarios as well. Okay, so this is the process that I'm going to run you through today. This is the start to finish process. There's 9 total steps. I'm not going to read them off right now, but each one of these is absolutely necessary to get everything that you can out of landing pages. So let's get right into it. Number 1, this is the most important thing that I feel like I see brands that come to us at Homestead, our agency, or just talking to founders at conferences is many times you hear, someone say, I've tested a landing page, but it didn't work. Now, my response back to that is always, well, what metric were you trying to improve? Or what were you really looking at to test? What was all in the mix at that point? So are you trying to increase your average order value or your conversion rate? And I think the biggest thing that people don't always take into consideration is, hey, I really want to increase my average order value. Well, what happens if your conversion rate decreases by increasing your average order value on this landing page offer test, right? Or your conversion rate might increase if that's your goal, but then your average order value decreases. So below, I've kind of broken down very, very simply. And again, I'm sure, D2C Twitter will love this, but there's a million ways to kind of lay out contribution margin and how that's kind of set up. But for this simplistic scenario, I've got 3 different scenarios where we're going to assume that our cost of traffic is consistent. And I think most brands, once they've kind of cracked, like, this is the type of ad that's working for me, and this is the pretty much consistent cost of traffic, then the 2 variables would be conversion rate and average order value. So depending on what you're trying to test, you might be trying to increase your average order value. You might be trying to increase your conversion rate. Now, as you kind of walk through this, like, what is the cost of traffic times my conversion rate based on my AOV? What is my cost per acquisition? What is my return on ad spend? But then really at the end of the day, what is my contribution margin? This is super, super important to establish before you get into testing, is figuring out what is the goal of the test and what is the goal outcome that I want to create. Choose the variable that you plan to test. Now, on top of your goal, so let's say it's conversion rate that we're trying to increase, what we want to figure out then is what are the variables that we're going to be testing on these landing pages. Is it products? Are you going to be testing from normally on your website, you're just pushing single products? Maybe on this landing page, you want to push a bundle. Is it an offer? Is it a price increase or decrease because you're trying to gain a little extra margin? Or is it positioning, which this is like most commonly what we see is you've got your offer figured out. You generally have a good idea of what type of ads are kind of working, but maybe you want to try and sell to a completely different customer demographic, or you want to try and solve and pitch a different problem that you're solving. So 2 kind of different ways to look at this is if your goal is higher AOV, you can test something like bundling XYZ products together to try and push that AOV up. Or you can adjust your offer to something like a buy more, save more. This is something that's worked really well for me and for my own brands, as well as a lot of our clients. Now, let's say your goal is to go for a higher conversion rate. Most cases, you're adjusting the discount or pricing to hit that, or you're trying completely new positioning. Now, one thing that we want to showcase here, and something that a lot of people kind of miss this step on, is your goal should be to match the ads and what your positioning is, what your angles, your hooks that you're pushing in your ads to what you're seeing on the landing page. Especially if you're going to be doing something as deep as like whitelisting with a content creator and then going to a page that's talking about maybe 6 reasons why, why fitness enthusiasts love this product. Let's try to use that same type of content from ad all the way through the landing page. Okay, so once you've gone through, you've selected what your variable is, you've selected what you're trying to increase. So maybe it's, conversion rate or average order value. And then maybe what you're going to be testing is, we've running the same offer across the board, but we want to test, different positioning. So once you have that, then your next stage is your next step is to pick and select your landing page template. Now, there's primarily 3 main templates that we follow at Homestead. There's the listicle, the advertorial, and the shoppable. Now, the big kind of differentiator between all of these, a listicle, it is what it kind of sounds like, right? It's usually a list of reasons why a customer should purchase your product and things that you can educate them on. Advertorial is a little bit more longer form written content, where a shoppable page actually allows someone to have maybe some similar sections as what you would see in a listicle or advertorial, but then have the ability to purchase right from that page. And that's kind of the second part of this step, is choosing the path to purchase. Are you going to push directly from this landing page to a product page or collection page? Or are you going to push them straight into checkout? This is a very, very important piece. And from our experience, we've kind of tested a few different options across the board. We really, really like listicles to product pages, advertorials to product pages. And depending on the brand, as long as you can keep average order value up high enough through a shoppable pages can work in some cases too. Now that we picked our template, let's get into messaging and copywriting. Now, as you can see, I've added a lot of copy to the messaging and copywriting slide here. There's a lot to think about, and there's a lot that you're trying to avoid. So a couple things that we do on a regular basis is tell our copywriters and tell our team, don't be afraid to go or let go of brand terminology and to be more casual with the language that you use. An example of this is basically a branded messaging might say, gear up for success, elevate your training with the revolutionary Luxtreme legging, right? So it's using branded terminology, a trademark. Now, people don't know what Luxtreme is. They, maybe you're trying to like overuse some branding messaging versus taking a little more casual, where you're saying, same product, these leggings are going viral for making recycled water bottles, or for making recycled water bottles look great. Again, the big thing here is like we can pull back when it comes to landing page testing versus maybe what you want to have on your site. A few other things to think about is avoiding very vague adjectives. That's one thing that we've tried to stay away from. Getting more specific, really, really dumbing down your copy, and trying to create curiosity to learn more. The headline, from everything that we've learned from, is one of the biggest pieces. It's the most read piece on your landing page. People pay attention to that headline more than they read anything else. So your goal of that headline really is to pique curiosity and to try and get them to not only read that headline, but read the next paragraph or the next maybe call to actions or the next bullet list. The last piece here that I want to mention on copywriting comes down to talking from the customer's point of view and using their language. So the biggest thing that we do for our clients and for our own brands is we read through our product reviews, our ad comments, and even take into consideration top performing ad hooks. So again, if your customers are using simpler language, why not try in their reviews? Why not try to use that on your landing pages or even in your ads? Okay, designing your page. Now, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here. I think this is a little bit more straightforward. As far as designing landing pages go, we recommend using Figma. It's super easy for collaboration, not only with like clients if you're an agency, but if you're a brand and have an in-house team. That is the tool of choice. It's pretty much the standard across the industry. Now, as far as landing pages design goes, really like your goal here is not to reinvent the wheel. There's so many pages that have already been designed, that are beautifully designed, that have really, really good inspiration out there. I have a link here to a site called getscrapbook.com. I'm not affiliated with this site in any way, just have there's a really good selection of different design elements. Now, the big thing about design comes down to just like these key sections, right? You have an announcement bar, nav or a phone navigation. So it's not actually linking out to anything. Maybe it's just like linking you to sections on the page. You've got your hero section, a comparison chart, us versus them, reviews. Maybe those are video reviews or, featured reviews, press features, 2-column with text, which is more common with like the listicle style, CTA section, buy box, frequently asked questions footer. So pretty straightforward here. Again, I would try your best if you're just starting with landing pages, get inspiration from other brands. Don't reinvent the wheel. It's just going to be a waste of time. Okay, building with the right software. So there is a ton of different options out there. The main three that we've kind of utilized at Homestead and tried, and we've even tried it with our own brands, is PageDeck, Replo, and Unbounce. Now, the key thing here is a lot of these tools have very, very similar functionality. Some have pre-built templates for you, especially for D2C brands, which is great. But there really isn't a ton that kind of like separates them. The biggest and most important thing that I always say for our clients, and then even for friends that are in the industry, is choose the tool that your team or your agency can utilize. I've heard so many times where people are like, hey, I went and spent, thousands of dollars on this landing page, but now I don't know how to go in and just even duplicate it and change the headline. So for us at Homestead, we choose to use PageDeck. It really allows our non-technical team to just jump in, swap out headlines, duplicate pages, swap out content creatives. They also have a bunch of pre-built templates. Again, like, don't reinvent the wheel here. Focus on the content within the page versus just like the complexity of the design. Okay, how to properly launch your tests. Now, today, there's going to be a lot of speakers earlier, prior to me, after me. They're all going to talk about how to go about, testing. What is the best way to test in your ad accounts? I don't want to go into a ton of detail on that. There is a handful of different ways. There's definitely lots of opinions on that. I think the key thing here is that if you're going to be testing landing pages in your account, that you keep your ad account testing structure consistent, that you're not doing it in a bunch of different ways, that you have your set kind of way that you're doing it. The way that we usually recommend this is if you're already testing ad creatives, just follow that same format. So one example for one brand might be, hey, we're going to run one ABO campaign. Each ad set is a test. Maybe for another brand, they want to run each individual campaign as an ASC campaign, and each campaign is its own test. The key to testing, though, is always having a control and limiting the variables at play. So going back to the first parts, setting your goal. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to increase conversion rate? AOV, cool. What is the variables that are at play here? What are we testing? Is it an offer or is it positioning? Cool. Now, I think the next big thing is then when it goes to running these, we like to run these as 50-50 tests where we split budget between driving traffic to a PDP versus a landing page. Now, the key part of this is making sure that you're utilizing the same ad, creative, and copy across these tests. Back to my point previously, we want to limit as many variables as possible. So we're going to take our best ads and we're going to run those to a product page, same budget, same audience. Then we're going to take the same ads, same budget, same audience and run it to a landing page. So the last part of that is always having a tracker and a testing log. So on the right, you can just see a very, very simplistic version. You can go into way, way more detail than this. But this way you can kind of, keep track of what are all the pages that we've ran, when did we launch them, what was the offer, what product were we focused on, what was the headline, and what were our learnings from running that test if we've turned it off or not. Okay, coming down to analyzing the data now. So the primary tool that we use, shout out Northbeam, that's why we're here, super stoked to be here today talking about Northbeam, is Northbeam that we use for all of our clients and what we use internally. When it comes to looking at these tests, the key metrics that we're looking at are kind of, your pretty standard metrics, your spend, attributed revenue. One-day click ROAS is our North Star that we use across most of our brands at Homestead and our internal brands to kind of get a leading indicator on what's going on and how things are performing. Obviously, we're looking at CAC, AOV, conversion rate. And then there's two other metrics that I feel like not enough people pay attention to, but I think are also really important, which is cost per email signup and percentage of new visits. Now, percentage of new visits, the more that brands move over to ASC campaigns is something that we really try to keep an eye on. If percentage of new visits is only 50%, but one-day click ROAS is a little bit higher, we just know that that campaign is leading into more quote unquote lower funnel remarketing types of audiences. So if our goal is to, again, be acquiring new customers and trying to push more top of funnel traffic, that's just one metric that we keep an eye on. Now, how frequently are we looking at this? How frequently are we making changes? Again, I'm not trying to go into a ton of detail on this, but our standard, the way that we look at it with our internal brands, as well as like most of our clients, is on a 3, 7, 10, and 14-day windows. And all that we're trying to do there is between those windows, looking and identifying declining performance or peaking trends. Okay. Step 9, iterating the pages. So you've created your page, you've launched it, you've collected your data on it. Now what, right? So I think the biggest thing here is people get stuck on what do I do next? Maybe I've tested a page, it didn't work. Okay, maybe I tested a page and it did work. What's the next step? So smaller swings that you can do. And again, going back to having the right tool for these page builders, testing new headlines, testing new copy, testing new creatives, and then testing the format by swapping either what's the priority of items potentially on your listicle, 1 through 6, 1 through 5, maybe removing some. Again, these are all things that you can do. A lot of this is, driven by what you're seeing people make remarks on in your ad comments, in your post-purchase surveys, even just from your customer service team, right? Are people really, really stoked on your free trial? Well, let's make sure that that's on there if it already wasn't. The other thing that you can do is, as you can see, from the page on the left to the page on the right, we were having like decent success with page 1, but then we wanted to trial and see if we could actually add in one last piece of content, add in kind of this faux buy box at the bottom, and then even just shorten the hero section, right? So a lot of this is very, very similar content, but as you can see, we've kind of progressed it to try a new version of the same thing. Same offer, so we didn't change that. The variables at play here is the template and the creative used. Okay, once we've tried enough smaller swings, what are our larger swings? Then we can go into product testing. So maybe we're trying bundles versus single products. Maybe we're trying a brand new offer. Maybe we're trying pricing, positioning, right? There's a lot of big things that you can do if your page doesn't work. And knowing what to do next really just comes down to trying to dig into, like I mentioned, all of those little elements, and hearing from your customers and hearing why they're buying the product and what resonated with them. The last thing that I wanted to mention on this is one thing that we enjoy and just like try to think more about is if we have a landing page that maybe we're targeting, like in this example, blue collar construction workers, can we go broader? Maybe like we think our audience is only going to this one type of audience. Can we actually shoot broader than that? Can we open that up completely? Maybe if we're talking to construction workers, we can go all outdoor workers, something in that scenario. It's something that we really like to do, especially for brands that feel like their customer demographic is very, very niche and very small, to try and open up new pockets and new customer bases. Okay, so those were our steps 1 through 9. Now I want to talk about one of our 9-figure clients at Homestead. I'm just going to talk briefly about this. They're a client of ours, so we can't go into a ton of detail on kind of how everything has been going for them. But just wanted to show you kind of the evolution of how we think about landing pages, right? We're trying new offers, we're trying new templates, we're trying new copy, new headlines, right? So these are all of the types of swings that you can take when it comes to landing page tests. This isn't every page that we've created for HexClad, but this is just a handful of them that you can kind of see the small, just little iterations kind of on the middle images compared to like big swings from left all the way to right. One huge point that I wanted to make is that for this client specifically, 74% of all evergreen top of funnel traffic has gone to landing pages year to date. And in addition to that, obviously there's other factors at play here, but we've continued to push higher average order value products or bundles on these landing pages, which has helped us increase first time average order up 15% year over year. So these, again, if your goal is to increase your average order value, increase your conversion rate, landing pages are an amazing tool to do that. And they're an incredible tool to help educate people on products before you go and try and sell them directly on your product page. All right, so this is one of my own brands, Frey. So Frey, we acquired back in November of 2022. That brand went through. So one keynote that I really want to make when I'm talking about Frey is before we got into landing page testing, and again, this is like one of the first points that I made, we tested website user experience, product pricing, offers, and a bunch of creative before we got into landing page testing. Now, the important piece there is we're just trying to limit the variables at play, right? We don't want to go into just a bunch of different completely unique designs, talking about content that we don't really know if it's going to resonate or not before we at least have a baseline set of performance for a brand. So that is what we kind of focused on over the first few months since we took over the business. And as you can see here, thanks to extensive landing page testing, again, these aren't every single page that we've launched. This is just a handful of them. We've been able to bring our new customer CPA down from $28 to $17 at 300% more ad spend or scale in the last 30 days. And this is with the same ad creative that we've basically vetted in the previous month. We've been running that same ad creative and not incorporating any new creative. And this entire month has just been focused on landing page testing. So as you can see, if you have great ad creative, a solid offer, how can you improve your results even better? Landing pages are a great solution for that. Another one of our brands, Hollow, again, very similar to Frey. We focused on the first few months of launching the business. We focused on website UX, product pricing, offer testing, creative testing. Those are all so important to test first. But once you have a decent understanding of that, you can go even deeper. Now, I want to showcase one thing that you can do that I think is an interesting hack to find new ways or new audience who might be buying your product. So one of the things that we did with this business is we started running post-purchase surveys, asking our customers where they would be adventuring using their products. Now, in the beginning, we only had, we found out that hunting was a big demo, hiking, cycling, and then we started to get into skiing and snowboarding. Now, one of these segments here that stood out as people were filling out other was this outdoor work concept. And we were like, okay, outdoor work, don't really even know necessarily what that means. So we polled our customers and we ended up finding out that a lot of them were using it for construction, for a lot of just blue collar trade work, which is a completely new audience demographic that we didn't think we had. So we took that, we've then even incorporated it into our pop-up just to validate even the people that don't make it all the way through purchase, what are they planning to use the product for, which has really helped us identify, wow, a lot of people are coming to our site, maybe through targeting where we're even pitching hunting or hiking, but they're wanting to use the product for outdoor work. That's allowed us to then launch an entire funnel around outdoor work, which is now a big piece of our business and a brand new demographic that we didn't even think we could sell to. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up with some frequently asked questions about landing pages, and then potentially I have another minute or two to answer any questions from if anyone has anything. But so a few last minute questions here. Are you showing a pop-up on the landing page? So we've tested this numerous times across many of our clients, across our internal brands. We are not running or showing a pop-up on listicles or advertorials. The concept here is that we've found, not only through testing, that the list quality is actually better because you're almost showing a pop-up before they've even made even remotely a decision that they want a discount. This is something that's really important. Unless it's a shoppable landing page, meaning that they could go straight from landing page to checkout, where then we want to make sure that we're collecting emails and SMSs. So for the most part, no, we are not showing pop-up on the landing page. Next question. If you had to choose a landing page template to start with, which would you choose with? Listicles is the way to go. It's the simplest to design. It's the simplest to build. And I think it's a great way to educate, top of funnel cold traffic on what your product is before they even end up on a product page where they might see the price. Is there a minimum amount of traffic you need to make a real decision? This is the classic, it depends. It really depends on how much, spend you have. The end goal, though, is you're trying to prove statistical significance that this page is performing better than another. There's a bunch of those calculators out there that you can Google and find, but really, it depends. There's no hard number to say, hey, you need this many purchases to validate it. Really depends on the brand, how much they're spending, what their volume is, how many products they even have in stock to sell, right? Lots of variables at play there. And then last question, and these are all questions that I just posted on Twitter yesterday and had a few people jump in. Are you using AI to help you write copy for landing pages? So yes, we are. The best thing that we're doing right now through ChatGPT is just getting started. So if you just can't come up with any ideas, or if you're struggling to get started on headlines specifically, it's a great tool to use. The other thing that we've started using ChatGPT for is from taking a top performing listicle and then asking ChatGPT to turn that into an advertorial. I don't have any of the prompts on the slide. They're pretty long, but if you have any questions about that, that's something that you can definitely reach out and ask about. So just want to say thanks for having me on. If you have any questions about Homestead, you can check out our website. If you have any questions directly for me, feel free to reach out on Twitter at ZachMStuck. So thanks, everybody.
That's awesome, Zach. Thank you so much. I think the main question there's a few, but the one that came back a couple of times is, can you please share those slides? That would be awesome. If you can drop the link in the chat, people will really appreciate that. And there's also a couple more questions in the Q&A. And yeah, let's stay on the listicle one for a second. So what's the most important thing on the listicle above the fold? What's really, so you mentioned the headline. So how do you approach a headline on those? And is that really the critical element?
So yeah, I mentioned it kind of briefly before, but when you're driving cold traffic to a page, your goal is to, the goal of listicles really is to educate, right? You're trying to tell someone why they should be interested in this product before showcasing a price, or they might get price shock and bounce, right? So your headline and even showing the amount of customer reviews that you have in that top section is crucial, because that's your one piece or your one simple sentence that can get them to keep reading and keep diving deeper. So headline, I would say, yes, is probably the most important component of that, which is why when we launch landing pages, we really want the ability to duplicate them easily and just swap out new headlines.
That's awesome. And in the same vein, so Ashley was asking what's most important. Is it the education of the product versus the outcome? So it's more here's what we're offering versus how it works, or a mix, but actually it's even one step above that, which is really, why should you care about this? So yeah, starting with why, that's a famous Simon Sinek thing. So
yeah,
totally. And there's a couple more in the Q&A section. If you can stick on and reply a couple, that'd be appreciated. But let's take one last question. How are you tracking cost per email sign up?
So we're doing that directly in Klaviyo. So we're making sure that everything is synced up, so we can see that from, we're doing that in Northbeam, sorry. Northbeam is how we're actually looking at the data, but we're making sure Klaviyo is synced.
Right, so you have all of your different campaigns and platform, and then you can pull the email, the cost per email sign up directly in Northbeam on your main dashboard.
Correct, yep.
That's awesome. There's 4 more questions for you. If you have a few minutes in the Q&A, that'd be really appreciated. But sure. Presentation, people love it. If you can drop it in the chat, also they will make sure to contact you.
Happy to do that, totally. So yeah, I don't know if you want me to answer any more of these questions.
No, well, if we can take them offline, we're going to welcome on stage, very hot.
Cool. Thanks you so much.
Zach. Have a great day, man.
Yeah.